house always wins. Play long enough, you never change the stakes, the house takes you. Unless, when that perfect hand comes along, you bet big, and then you take the house. Been practicing this speech a little bit. Did I rush it? Felt like I rushed.
That was good. I liked it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Big Easy Bets podcast. I'm your host, Logan, and with me in the studio, Nick Von Brick.
What's up?
This is episode 256. We are on to the Elite Eight. The Sweet 16 is nearly completely done. We are watching the conclusion of Iowa State and Tennessee as we speak. Looks like Iowa State is going to get upset, albeit in the wake of losing Josh Jefferson in the first game of the tournament. But we're going to recap an up and down Sweet 16 and then give you our best bets for the Elite Eight. Try to find some more winners here. We are firmly in the midst of our bracket challenge and trying to see how that shakes out. We just got to the window with UConn there that we needed badly. As it currently stands, my name sits atop the leaderboard of our bracket challenge, and it will not be there in about 5 seconds when Iowa State loses this game. I thought I could be a little more reckless with an Illinois bracket, and then come to find out everybody I know copies my fucking brackets, apparently, and it's cost me in the past, and it's probably going to cost me again this year. But we'll see how it shakes out. What are your thoughts on the Sweet 16? How did it go? Anything outside of Iowa continuing to win? Nobody, actually one person in our bracket challenge had that.
Oh, yeah.
He was in dead last. He was in dead last for the entirety of it until all of a sudden he's got a lifeline because the Hawkeyes are on a Cinderella run right now. But, yeah, what are your thoughts? How are you feeling? And what's the outlook going into the Elite Eight?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's been good games. I guess the most impressive, like, you keep going back and forth, or I do, on who's the best team, whether it's Arizona or Michigan. It's like after the first weekend, I was starting to lean towards Michigan being the best team. Then, Arizona puts up one of the best performances the best performance in the tournament so far. So,
yeah, 109 points. They only attempted 8 3-pointers, which we've talked about that a bunch, and we were both. I have the future on Arizona. It was we give you our number one bracket of what we think is the most likely outcome. It's like I said, when you do 20 brackets, then you're just guessing. You're only as good as your first bracket. We both agreed Arizona was the best team at that point in time. You started, kind of, and I said it was 1A, 1B. I said Michigan was right there. It was the two that I felt were head and shoulders better than the rest. But the big thing with Arizona was the fact that they can score without having to rely on the three. Michigan's very similar in that aspect, I guess, but they don't score it as well as Arizona. Arizona plays with pace, and Michigan can too, but I think Michigan is not as reliable. They can go a little colder on the offensive side than what you see with Arizona. That was the because we talked about that Arkansas game, and I'm a sucker for good guard play in the tournament, but Arizona defensively, I felt like could match up pretty well with them. But then the biggest issue is that Arkansas doesn't even try to defend. They'll go like a whole 4-minute stretch. They'll go media timeout to media timeout without playing defense for 1 second. And against a team like that where there's just so many options and so much size, so even if they do miss it, they're getting the rebound. And they got anything that they wanted in that game. So, but yeah, like I said, Iowa, in my opinion, is obviously the biggest surprise. Big shot from Tennessee. That's probably going to be the dagger. But the Houston Illinois game was, we were on the right side of it. I took Illinois plus 3.5. That was another one I was kicking myself for not betting more. And there's been a few of those this year where, like, sometimes the circumstance works out well where both of the teams extremely well. And I was very familiar with Illinois. Obviously, I'm very familiar with Houston. and stylistically, that one, as I said, at 3.5 points, I had to go with Illinois there. I felt like you could rely on them more on the offensive side, and that's what you saw. Houston went so long on so many different scoring droughts, and it was interesting after the game. Brad Underwood credited some of his staff for the defensive scheme, and I don't know if you noticed, Chris Sinak kept taking those short corner jumpers, and I think he hit the first one, and he's capable of shooting, but it's like statistically that's not a great shot, especially not in that matchup against a team that's going to get hot from the three-point line. It's like you need to either attack the rim or you're going to have to match them with threes. And they kept taking those mid-range pull-up jumpers, and it's like kind of playing right into Illinois' hands. So it's tough to see Kelvin Sampson go out that way, but it was very predictable. I was saying it like a broken record, like this Houston team has serious issues in comparison to some of the previous years that we've seen Houston, you know?
Yeah, they had talent. It just like never came together, you know? Like the pieces didn't mesh well. And there was a part there in the middle of the season where it kind of started to seem like the offense was starting to gel a little bit, but it never got to the point it needed to be.
Yeah, I think they had more NBA talent this year than in any of the years past, where they had like maybe a guy here or there. But I mean, I don't even know if Sasser went to the NBA. Cryer's undersized. Like, they had just really good collegiate players. Juwan Roberts is not an NBA guy. They had the Jarris Walker, obviously, NBA guy. So they've had NBA talent, but in terms of modern day college basketball, like scoring at the guard position, all that, Kingston Flemings is a fantastic player, but yeah, it's a team that you're used to having veteran leadership, and they all buy into the culture. And I don't think that they didn't buy in. I don't think you just pick that up like that. That's like 3 years of being in the program when you really know it like the back of your hand. But yeah, it was just one of those situations where it was clear, and I, as much as I didn't want it to be the case because I'm a fan of the program, they had issues, and that came to be against Illinois. And to be honest, Illinois could have won that game by more. So yeah, I went 2-2 in the Sweet 16. I'd bet Purdue again, to be quite honest with you. I thought Braden Smith played a terrible game. I thought it was just threes were not falling for Purdue at all, and everything was falling for Texas. Tremont Mark was limping around on one foot and couldn't miss. It was just one of those situations where it was unfortunate. I would bet Purdue again in that spot. And then so we ended that night with Illinois. What did we have today? Something fucking annoying. Oh, Alabama plus 10.5. They were giving Michigan all they could handle in the first half, and then Michigan flipped that switch in the second half. They made adjustments at the perimeter, really took LeBaron Philon out of his game, especially in that final 5-minute stretch. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't go anywhere. With that being said, we were down 13. LeBaron Philon, Michigan packed it in. They didn't care anymore. He got essentially a warm-up jumper from the three-point line for the cover. Missed it. In hindsight, I don't know if I would take that one again because maybe first half would have been the play. But Alabama was hitting everything in that first half. Michigan made the adjustments, which you would expect a team like that or in Arizona to do. And it's kind of what we saw with Michigan against St. Louis or Duke against TCU. Like, the top teams make the necessary adjustments defensively, and then they smother you. So, and then we ended it with UConn minus 1.5. I might have got it 2 by the time we gave it out. So I went 2-2. I'm okay with the losses. They were frustrating, but what can you do? You know.
Yeah, I had Arkansas plus 8. I thought it's like even by halftime you just knew it wasn't gonna. You didn't really have much of a chance there. Just Arkansas wasn't playing bad offensively, but
yeah, they had to play flawless.
Yeah, they would have. It would have had to been a miraculous night from Acuff and Malik Thomas, but In hindsight, breaking that down, it's like all my notes pointing towards the over, but money had come in on the over before we recorded, and I don't know, sometimes that shies you away.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had Alabama, Michigan over. Alabama second half, lowest scoring second half this season for Alabama, only 28 points after scoring 49 in the first half.
Yeah, would they have like 100 combined in the first half? It was
Yeah,
around, it was around
almost.
that. Yeah. Yeah, that's tough.
But we hit Duke St. John's over 141.5. The game went kind of how I thought it would, like kind of that back and forth battle where the way St. John's plays kind of just speeds the entire game up regardless of really what you want to do.
It also helped they were like 60% from the three-point line in the first half.
Yeah.
They were hitting an unrealistic number from beyond the arc. And then the guy, Prey, he's got the long curly hair, little unsightly. He was 4 of 4 from the three-point line in the first half, and Rick Pitino rewarded him with giving him, I think, 2 minutes in the second half. He just sat there and let Ian Jackson jack up 3 after 3 after 3 and foul people in the worst situations. Ian Jackson was the worst player on the court for St. John's. I was mind blown that he stuck with him for as long as he did. He was a clear liability, couldn't hit a shot, kept trying to shoot him, couldn't do it though. But you got your guy Prey, 4 for 4 from the three-point line. He literally, they had a 1-point lead going into halftime. It was entirely because of his shooting. And he was playing great on the defensive end too, to be quite honest with you. He had a chase down block on ladies crying because of Iowa State. Lady, get over it. Fucking team's trash. I'll do this every year. A chase down block on Boozer. He was playing a fantastic game. So I hope somebody, I didn't see it, but I hope somebody grilled him on why you didn't play him in the second half. He got in with like a minute to go when they needed to hit threes. We could have really used St. John's to upset Duke for this bracket challenge, but and so that was your last one. Was that over?
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. We go to the Elite Eight. We're approaching nearly midnight. It's another March Madness late night episode. First game on Saturday, 5:09 Central Time tip. You've got Iowa taking on Illinois. The Big Ten is represented pretty well in this tournament. Nobody saw the Hawkeyes doing what they're doing currently. They find themselves against a familiar foe in Illinois. So the way I'm looking at it is we just saw this game. We just saw Iowa and Nebraska go toe-to-toe. Iowa won 77-71. The total in that game opened roughly around 133.5. We're looking at 137.5 in this one. I think Illinois is significantly better on the offensive side than Nebraska is, and I think they're worse defensively. So naturally, we're going to go over 137.5. I think Illinois has too many shot makers. I think they have too much size, but Iowa shoots a lot of threes. They have multiple guys who are capable of making them. I think the way that this one's going to play out is they're going to have to hit from the outside if they're going to have a chance in this game. I lean Illinois, but not strongly enough to feel great about it. So I'm going to go over 137.5. I said it, and you saw it against Houston, although it wasn't a high-scoring game. I understand they were struggling in the beginning, but it's inevitable that they're going to get shots to fall. There's just too many guys who are capable of shooting from the outside, but then you have the Stojakovic and Wagler and Boswell and a bunch of guys who can get to the rim. Mirkovic can play back to the basket, and they're very versatile offensively. If they have a weakness, it's the perimeter defense. It's what Iowa's going to have to exploit if they're going to stay in this game and have a chance. So we're going to go over 137.5 for Iowa, Illinois.
Is that what did this open at? Is that what it opened at?
No, it opened much higher, and money's come in.
Yeah, it's like this is a game where stylistically, because of the pace of play here by both teams, you want to take the under, but it's like now it's mad low.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you've got roughly 5 points, 4 to 5 points of a difference from where it opened to where the money's driven this number down. And I understand where we're at this point in the tournament. One, it's going to become much more difficult to find value at this point in the tournament. So you walk that tightrope of not forcing plays, but also still having action. But also it's going to become a lot tighter, and every possession matters more. It's why national championship games are typically lower scoring. You're going to see it here too. This is to go to the Final Four. This is very significant games. So you're going to see the possessions are valued much more. With that being said, I still think that there's just too many shooters on the court. The number's too low. The number has now gotten into the territory of being too low. So I got to go over here.
All right.
Are you on anything for this one?
No, I don't think so.
What about Purdue, Arizona?
Yeah, I guess so. And this is kind of, it's like you said, it's the later you get in the tournament, the harder it is to find value, and you're kind of trying to maybe pick and choose spots where you think the underdog might be undervalued. Here, I don't know. I just don't know stylistically the way these teams match up. I think Purdue, to keep this game close, is going to have a really good night for shooting the ball from outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Arizona defensively just defends the rim too well. They're not slouches at defending the perimeter at all. Defensively, though, Purdue really doesn't defend the basket well. And I think that's a big issue here. You mentioned it. Arizona scored over 100 points and only made 5 threes against Arizona. I just don't know. I think it's going to take somewhat of a heroic night from Purdue from behind the arc to keep this game close. So I'll lay 6 points with Arizona.
Okay. Yeah, I went back and forth with this one. I am going to have a play on it, but it's tough. And yeah, I clearly think Arizona is the best team significantly. I'm going to turn this off now that we're done here. I'll go to turn this off, and it'll turn this other one on. Yeah, there you go. I do think Arizona is the clear-cut best team in the country, and you can argue Michigan for sure, but I think Arizona is the most complete team. But I shied away from laying it with them. I guess I'll just get to what because I can see so many different ways that this one's playing out. But what I decided to settle on was the first half under 72.5 between Arizona and Purdue. I think, yes, Purdue's going to have to get shots falling from the outside, but what Purdue's going to have to do is slow this game down. They do not want to get into a track meet with this team. Arizona wants to run. We mentioned it multiple times already, 109 points, only attempting 8 3-point shots. They're going to run. They're going to get to the basket. You try to crack the code on, is it a good thing to take the first half or not, because the 2 foul participation and it could be it's a double-edged sword. You could get a valuable scorer to go to the bench in the first half, or you get a valuable rim protector, and then it hurts you. I just think it's in Purdue's best interest to slow this game down and run through the half-court offense and maybe try to plan a couple fouls on Arizona's bigs down low. And I think you just want to avoid getting into a track meet with this team. So I'm going to go first half under 72.5 as my play for the Elite Eight West Region game. And then we look to Sunday. It looks like Michigan-Tennessee opened pretty quick, actually. It looks like Michigan's 7.5-point favorites against Tennessee. You got anything for that? I know we that one just ended, but I'd lean Michigan, I'll tell you that. I think Tennessee's kind of fraudulent, but maybe an under.
Yeah, I would maybe lean under here. I don't know. I think the reason you would be scared to go under is just if Michigan can fucking, really open it up on them and blow them out the water, and then there goes the under too.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the under. I think, yes, that is the worry. I think Tennessee is super, super one-dimensional on the offensive side. I think if you can take away Gillespie and Ament, they're gonna have to crash the boards, and because Tennessee rebounds it at a crazy level, but there's a shitload of size with this Michigan team. The way that they can guard the perimeter, the length that they have at every position. You just saw what they did to Alabama. Alabama's much more capable of scoring the basketball than Tennessee. When Michigan flips that switch on the defensive side of the ball, they can shut down anybody. And Tennessee, with their style of play and their ability to defend as well, they can make it a potentially a tough night for Michigan. I would lean Michigan with the points. I feel more comfortable taking the under. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go under 146.5 as well. The big thing here is if, you wonder how much of a rebounding, is the rebounding advantage going to be typically for Tennessee? Is it going to be neutralized here at all?
Yeah.
Because of the size of Michigan down low, but I don't know.
It's probably at least just not going to be as lopsided. They'll probably still win the boards because they put so much emphasis on it, but it won't be as lopsided as it is against most people. I mean, what did they just do against Iowa State? Granted, like I said, this is an Iowa State team without Josh Jefferson. And why is it not showing me? All right. Which that's just unfortunate that's the way it played out. Yeah, they fucking Tennessee out-rebounded Iowa State 43-22. Dominated them.
Yeah, so the hope here is if you're taking the under like us is that, Tennessee struggles to score, but hopefully they can have somewhat of an advantage rebounding it offensively so that, Tennessee's the offense that has the ball more than Michigan,
Yeah. All right, we go to the last game of the day. UConn taking on Duke. And I'll get right to it. I'm going to take the Huskies here getting 5.5. I'm not impressed with this Duke team. They're not a fun watch, but that's not why you bet on or against somebody. That's just a side note. It's bully ball with Boozer down low. I kind of scratch my head and maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know how he's going to really translate to be a superstar in the NBA. I don't really necessarily see it. It just seems like he's bigger and stronger than the opposition in college. That you're not going to be bigger and stronger than these guys in the NBA. But he can kind of shoot it a little bit. I'll give him that. But we're going to take UConn plus 5.5 here. And this UConn team frustrates me unlike any team I've seen in recent history, where they'll go on a 4-minute stretch where they're the best team in the country by far. And then they'll go on a 4-minute stretch where they run around the perimeter for 25 seconds out of the shot clock and then force up bad shots and don't get back on defense and don't do anything the right way. And I'm not sure how it happens or why it happens, but Hurley sits courtside and just lets it happen, and sometimes he'll start screaming, but they still do it. It's one of the more inconsistent teams. But when they're on, they're going to be able to beat anybody in the country. Defensively, I think that they have the guys, the size, and the I think they have the personnel to match up pretty well with Duke here. Terrace Reed versus Boozer down low, that's going to be the matchup. But when you look at this Duke team, Caden Boozer's okay. Outside of him, I think I'm blanking on his name. There's the one kid that it bails them out when there's a shot that needs to be made. Yes, Isaiah Evans.
Yeah, he's their only 3-point shooting threat, really.
Yeah, he's actually their second leading scorer. I didn't even know he scored that much. Caleb Foster came back, and he shoots pretty well from the outside, but he doesn't shoot a ton of them. But he was in and out of the game, and it looked like for a minute there that he might be done. They were working on his foot, and then they started turning the ball over to St. John's quite a few times, and all of a sudden Foster was back in the game. So he's clearly not 100%. But, I mean, the reason we're taking UConn here is I think, like I said, defensively, I think they can match up with Duke. I think Duke has been less than impressive this entire tournament. Even with that second half they had against TCU, you saw them sleepwalk against Siena, and then St. John's had a legitimate chance to win the game against them. I think UConn's better than St. John's. The record through the regular season does not, and the postseason doesn't indicate that. I get it. But but all I can remember is UConn beating St. John's by 40 points. So if we can get that UConn, wishful thinking, I understand. I think UConn can win this game outright, so I'll take the 5.5 points with them as my final play for the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I'm going to go UConn plus 5.5 too. I think defensively, UConn's a team that's still somewhat overlooked. The big thing here is just Duke doesn't have the 3-point shooting as some of the other top teams,
Yeah.
Like Arizona doesn't shoot the 3 a lot, but they're more efficient than Duke. And Michigan's obviously out of the top 3 teams, Duke, Michigan, and Arizona. Michigan's the best 3-point shooting team. I think the big thing here is with Reed down low and the way Karaban can stretch the floor, maybe you end up with some more one-on-ones here, and I don't know how well Duke will be able to defend Reed down low. And that's one thing UConn's done later in the season is played through Reed a little bit more, and it's helped their offense. So we'll go UConn plus 5.5.
Yeah, his first game in the tournament, what did he go for, fucking 30 and 30? He had an incredible stat line. Yeah, you look at just against Michigan State, which really tough opponent, tough matchup, a lot of size down low, and then just the way they play defense. Terrace Reed, 20 points on 8 of 16 shooting. Karaban gave you 17 on 6 of 12. What we need is, and Solo Ball finally stepped up a little bit. He wasn't a complete no-show, 12 points on 4 of 8 shooting. The game before, he was 0 for 5 from the floor. We need Braylon Mullins. We need Braylon Mullins so bad because this kid is super, super capable, but he's got to grow the fuck up fast. And you're going to have to do it fast against this Duke defense. But if Braylon Mullins can give you double digits, dare I say he gives you 20 points, UConn's going to win this game without question. This kid's the X factor, and he's super talented, super athletic, can shoot the ball from the outside. He 100% is the X factor. You got to get the consistent production from Karaban and Reed, and it would be nice to get some more out of Solo Ball. But if Braylon Mullins can step up and give you a good game, then fuck, they could win the national championship. So, but we'll see how it goes. That is our best bets for the Elite Eight. To recap, I am taking Iowa, Illinois over 137.5. Purdue, Arizona, first half under 72.5. Tennessee, Michigan under 146.5, and UConn plus 5.5.
I'm going to go Arizona -6, Tennessee, Michigan under 146.5, and UConn plus 5.5.
There you go. That is our best bets for the Elite Eight. Episode 256 is in the books. Do you have anything to say before we go?
Nope.
We're sitting in a good spot. We've got multiple brackets still in play. I've got an Illinois future, and then we put a relatively significant bet on Arizona right before tournament play, or actually right before conference tournament play. So we're sitting in a good spot to end the season to make some money. I don't think I get the credit I deserve to snipe a fucking 20+ to 1 odds future. Last year was Texas Tech at 35 to 1. This year we're sitting on Illinois 20 to 1. We're going to try to end it the right way. Those are our best bets for the weekend. We will be back in studio to break down the Final Four. Good luck.
The house always wins. Play long enough, you never change the stakes. The house takes you. Unless, when that perfect hand comes along, you bet big, and then you take the house. Been practicing this good. A little bit. Did I rush it? Felt like I rushed.
That was good. I liked it.